Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the distributive property, so I thought I'd share with you a little video put together by Mr. Kraft for his students.
I got 2 times 1 and 4x plus 1. I'll show you how to DPN, soon we will be done. The 2 on the left, he's going for a ride. You take them and you times by the terms inside. The 2 and the 4, the x will have to wait. You multiply together and you put them with the 8. We're halfway there, one thing left to do. 2 times 1 is 2, we have 8 plus 2. Teach me how to DP, teach me how to DP. Teach me how to DP, teach me how to DP. Every number gets it, every number gets it, every number gets it. You ain't messing with my DP.
Okay, so Mr. Kraft pointed out that we're going to use the DP, or distributive property. Okay, so just in really generic terms, we say that we can take any term, so we'll let that be A, and multiply it times the sum of any 2 other terms. So we're going to call those B and C. Okay, so if we can multiply A times B plus C. If we knew what B and C were, we'd just add them together and multiply times A. That's basic order of operations. But when we have unknown quantities, we can't add them together. As we saw yesterday, they have to be like terms. So what we do is we multiply the term outside the parentheses times every term inside the parentheses. Thus here we would get A times B plus, because this is a plus sign, A times C, and it works for subtraction as well. Okay, so we look at our first example. We have 4 in parentheses, x plus 3, close parentheses. Okay, so we look, x plus 3, can't add them together because they're not like terms, so we're going to distribute that 4 and we're going to multiply it times the x, and we're going to multiply it times the 3. So we get 4 times x plus 4 times 3. And we simplify that. 4 times x is written as 4x, and 4 times 3 is 12. Pretty straightforward. Let's take a look at another example. Here we have negative 2 outside of a set of parentheses, and we have x plus 4 inside. So this whole thing, negative 2, is going to multiply times the x and times the 4. So we'll have negative 2 times x plus, because that's a plus sign, negative 2 times 4. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x plus negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Okay. Now, we usually don't leave 2 terms side by side, so when you have a positive times a negative, it's negative. So our final answer would be negative 2x minus 8. And that's simplified. All right, so let's take a look at the next example. And we have a little bit more going on here. We have something similar where we have the number outside the parentheses, but then we have some extra things going on here. All right, well, I'm going to remind you, we talked about this with integers. We don't really do subtraction anymore in algebra. We say we're going to add, and then we have our sign rules. Okay, so if I were to change this to a plus, then I would have to put a negative here for the parentheses, okay? And if I were to change this minus to a plus, then this would have to become negative 6, okay? But this doesn't really make sense. Plus negative parenthesis, what does that mean? Well, you see, if we multiply by the number 1, it doesn't change the value, right? 1 times 4 is still going to be 4. So what we can say here instead of plus negative is we're going to say plus negative 1 times 4x plus negative 6. Okay? So what that's going to look like for us is we're going to have plus here, and we're going to have negative 1 times 4x plus again, and then we're going to have negative 1 times negative 6. Okay? Up here, this was pretty straightforward. You just had the 2 times x and the 2 times 1, so that was 2 times x plus 2 times 1. Okay, so we clean that up. Here we'll have 2x. Here we'll have plus 2. Here we'll have plus negative 4x. And here we'll have plus 6. Okay. So then we look for our like terms. We have 2x minus 4x, 2 and 6. Okay. So we'd say 2 plus negative 4. Now, if the sign rules are starting to get you, go ahead and get your calculator. 2 plus negative 4, and you have negative 2. Okay, so this is all equal to negative 2x, and then 2 plus 6 is 8, plus 8. Okay, whole lot of symbols, very short, simple answer. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this last problem here. I'm going to go ahead and erase this first one so we have, not first one, but question 3, so we have some more space. Okay. All right, so we're looking at the same sort of thing going on. We have a number, some it's a fraction, but not bad. All right, number outside the parenthesis, and we're going to distribute it to everything on the inside. Okay, so that's going to be negative 1/6 times 18x. All right, and we said we wouldn't do subtraction more, we would do plus and negative, so we'll have plus negative 1/6 times negative 6. Okay. All right, so that's the first set of parentheses, and we've distributed all the way there because the parentheses ended. All right, so then we have this plus 2x. Okay, so this positive 2x is going to distribute to the 3x and the minus 1, except we said that would be plus negative 1. Okay, so we're going to have plus 2x times 3x plus 2x times negative 1. And that shows a little more space here to work with. All right, so negative 1/6 times 18. Hopefully you'll remember that you multiply negative 1 times 18, so you get negative 18 divided by 6. But if you don't, remember you've got your calculator. Go ahead and use it. So you get your fraction. And you'll put your negative 1/6 times 18 is negative 3. Okay, so all of this right here became negative 3x. Here, negative 1/6 times negative 6 is going to be positive. Okay? And then 1/6 times 6 is 1. Right? Here it gets a little weird looking because we haven't had to multiply by an x before. Right? Okay, so we look and we have 2 times 3. So we can multiply a number times a number. That's not hard. 2 times 3 is 6. And then what happens when we multiply x times x? Well, you could write it like this, x times x, right? But we have another way of writing that. When we repeat multiplication, it's an exponent. So instead of writing x times x, we're just going to write x squared. Okay? And then here we have plus 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And then the x doesn't have any other x's to multiply by, so we just write it down. Okay, so we look for like terms. We find one here and here. Okay, so negative 3 plus negative 2 is negative 5x plus 1 plus 6x squared. Now, this is a perfectly good answer, but we mathematicians like to keep things in order. So we always take the highest power first, so that it would be 6x squared, and then the minus 5x plus 1. So biggest power, then there's an understood 1, and then there's no power. Okay. All right, so now you need to come to class with your notes filled out so that we can get straight to work on practicing some distributive property.